Far across the land and sea, U to be a Gooner. 5,000 miles away, a few Arsenal Bangalore fans come together to discuss all things Arsenal. Welcome to the Bangalore Gooners podcast.
Hey guys, welcome to everyone listening to the show. Quick shout out to Jomi, who's been setting us up with a lot of streaming platforms, helping us out to reach out to you guys. So we go often live on YouTube, Facebook. We have our podcast, so you guys can look up Arsenal Bangalore everywhere, and just hit the like and subscribe button. You can follow us for updates and more ramblings about match day. So North London Derby. So before we actually discuss about the North London Derby, I want to bring up something Vivek was talking about recently. The COVID situation is still prevalent worldwide, and when the project restart happened, when the Premier League was getting back, having discussion about starting football back, we all had this thought that somewhere football will just be some sort of a distraction from all the things that are happening around us. But ever since it has started, we find ourselves completely involved. And the Leicester game over the weekend was quite evident. Sorry, midweek, right? So it was evident that we still have that frustration when we don't win a game, when we come close to winning a game and then we drop the points. So we are completely out of the situation around us is non-existent, and we all have Arsenal back in our mind. So do you think it's a welcome distraction from what's happening around? Just a generic stuff to start off with.
Yeah, absolutely. I think at least when the restart happened, yes, we lost the city, but I don't know how much of us pained after that defeat. Maybe it's also because we saw it coming, and then the Brighton game happened, and that kind of annoyed us. But I think with the team building some momentum, and with the sense of hope going into all of us when the world otherwise seems quite hopeless, I think on some level, maybe a reasonably large portion of the crowd is probably clinging on to Arsenal as the only ray of sunshine right now, right? Because everything else around us seems so gloomy, and Arteta has given us a reason to at least be hopeful of smiling and singing out loud again in maybe a year or two of us doing some great things. So I think it's a culmination of both. Yes, football's back, but also the fact that Arsenal as a club and as a team out there at least seems to kind of understand what to do on the pitch, and they have a clear direction on the long term goal under Arteta.
I think sometime back it also talks about us having the diversion, right? I was actually reading articles about telling that people need this diversion away from everything that's happening around. Uh, Importance to people's life is still critical, but even after that, having Arsenal back and football back is like some kind of new life coming to us because the stress that comes along with us going through this pandemic is not easy. No one knows what to do, and I think everyone being stuck at home, doing their day jobs and day work, things outside that is necessary for us to know that there is still a world, there is still a place where we can go do things, and for all of us here and most of the Arsenal fans also, it is Arsenal that puts us in that spot where we start thinking that way, and looking at that, I'm happy that football is back. I'm happy that Arsenal is doing well. Results could have gone better, but I'm just here to enjoy what Arsenal is going to do for the rest of the season.
Well,
Just
if
just
I may answer just on that point. I think there was a question that was asked in one of our earlier podcasts where I think Anjan, you asked me whether are we looking forward to watching the Arsenal play, and I think we had contradicting answers at that time where, based on a couple of literally felt like preseason, as it was rightly said by Jomi and Vivek. I think when they said, like, after seeing the German Bundesliga games, that I was keen, but I was not too keen, was what they said. But I think that has changed. I think all of us, I think, are in unison saying that this is a welcome relief. Maybe the relief is because, as you said, my city, I mean, our city here resembles a ghost town. It's a Friday night right now, and I see nobody on the road at the moment, whereas I know what it would have been in normal days. This is a never ever seen, and hopefully never ever to be seen, situation in our lives. Arsenal is a huge relief. If we are doing this, knowing very well that not many may be listening or not many may be bothered, but still we are doing it, it's because we are getting away from the reality. The reality is what's outside. What's inside is the absolute fact that this diversion was necessary for all of us. The pandemic is not going out anywhere soon. So, very honestly, these back to back games, Arsenal, the diversion of mind is just welcome. And now I am already thinking we are just left with 4 more games in the league and hopefully 2 more games in the FA Cup. And I'm already thinking, oh shit, we are not going to have games after, let's say, in 4 weeks, I think. So if football coming back and Arsenal coming back has meant this, because in 4 weeks the pandemic is definitely not going out. Arsenal are, so that's a worry for me. So I think it's been a huge relief.
Yeah, fair enough. Point of caution for people to stay home and watch the Arsenal. So a lot of international sports, is slowly coming back to life with its own set of rules and regulations and whatnot. So I think we may have to live with what we are able to catch up here in our country. Um, so the midweek game against Leicester, the first half specifically, we all saw that free flowing football at home, enjoyable, thoroughly enjoyable stuff. The same, if we go back a little to when we were under Emery, we had the exact same, Leicester game at home, free flowing football, maybe perhaps even better than what we played midweek. So at that point, what was your thought when after that win against Leicester under Emery? Did we see like things would turn ugly, or where it was quite recently until Arteta took over, a lot of changes happened, and then we slowly transitioned back to where we are. The first half that you saw then versus the first half that you saw a couple of days back.
Um, so I think if I'm being honest, it might apply for everyone too. I think the mood was very much upbeat after the Leicester win. The famous "we got our Arsenal back" and whatnot, right? AFT was in loud voice, and everybody, not everyone, well, most folks followed suit. So to be honest, I think there was more excitement in the air after that Leicester win. But what I think is the factor is that even after the Leicester win, during or before, I don't think anyone was very clear with what Emery's plans for Arsenal as a team and a club is in a year or two, because it always seemed like he was a guy just Arsenal was just part of his journey. It didn't seem like Emery was supposed to install values, or rather revive the values in the club, right? He was there for the team, a quick fix for the top four. But with Arteta, at least I feel there is a bit more of a personal connection. So there is more to buy into at that level. I in fact I don't really agree with most of the team, the first 11 that's put out week in, uh, week out. But there's just uh, something of a personal connection, a touch with Ateta that wasn't there with Emery. Footballistically speaking, I think I was more joyed after the Leicester win, at least simply because of the goals that were scored.
Yeah. So your thoughts on that, Ankur or Jomi, jump in.
I mean, I've been very vocal. I mean, I didn't see a lot of changes when Arteta took over, honestly. But then you always had that feeling, right? It's a new manager. You got to give him time. We had a very bad start to the season. Things were not going according to plan under Emery. We should have actually gone beyond what we did last season, and Emery actually showed a lot of promise last season, right? Do not know how things went after the Europa final. It could have an impact. I do not know, but yes, things went out of hand. We needed that change. Arteta seemed to be the person who can take us to the promised land, like we all want. And things were normal. I didn't see any change except for free flowing football, but not much of change in terms of the scorings. But with the break, after 100 days, I see a completely different outfit. It's not because of the wins. Let the wins not fool you, but it's more about how we've done well with most of the games. We still have a long way to go. I think we are playing a lot more kids than we need to be doing. Um, it's a great thing that we are able to manage with a lot of kids in the team too. I'm still not a big fan of having too many kids in the starting 11 unless they are proven. They have showed how much of worth they are. um, Arteta is doing a lot of things. You can see a lot of changes in every game. You can actually analyze after a game what he's done, and that's very strange. I mean, even when Wenger used to be there, what we know is free flowing football, but sometimes it was very difficult to understand what he was doing. I mean, there are a couple of things that we always knew that was going to happen when Wenger was there. Um, Beautiful football, 65 to 72nd minute, we're going to see a substitution. So that was always there. With Arteta, what I like is he's kind of being unpredictable in stages, but then there are a lot of things that you see him being very predictable, like playing from the left. But then last two games, we did see a change in that style. I mean, he's trying to um, push the game towards the right. So he's trying a lot of things, which is great. I still think he is still taking this as a trailer to understand his players, to see what the winning combination is and how best we can move in to the summer. And I'm really excited for next season. I mean, I'm seriously excited, irrespective of the signings. I really hope we do a few more good signings. We've done a lot of extensions, which is great. Again, something different from Arteta. Um, I don't know if that would have been the case if Emery was on. So with Arteta, I see a lot of those off-field activities also happening. So which is good. So really excited for next season, actually.
Yeah, just to add in a couple of points which Jomi mentioned, that one thing what he mentioned about Emery, that Emery was predictable. Yes, he was predictable, and one reason for that, I think Emery was too stubborn in some cases, trying very hard to do whatever he thinks is right, even if it wasn't working. For example, the playing out from the back. So many games we used to see that the playing out of the back thing is not happening. There is something wrong, but still more emphasis was put on the playing out of the back, even if after multiple failures it was done that. Similar was the case for the starting 11 also. I remember Emery was known as a half-time sub guy also amongst us. That almost every game there was a couple of half-time subs or a half-time sub done. Most of the times it was done because in the first half the formation wasn't working. That is something which I don't see with Arteta. Arteta is quite open to the fact that okay, if he has tried something today that is not working, and he's open to change in the very next game and adapt quickly. That was something which I didn't see personally in Emery. Having said that, yes, even I am very excited to see how Arteta plans up or does in the longer run. As of now, there are more positives than negatives for me. in Arteta's reign. And yeah, let's see. Looking forward to the game over the weekend as well as the next season.
No, something that was noticeable across both the styles, right? Emery, we were looking at Emery as who would lead us into the reign of telling that we are going to score more goals than we would concede. I think that was seen in the first season of Emery. Based on that, that is when we started seeing that we were able to score more goals, but we were still conceding. But the contrasting difference that Arteta brought in as soon as he came in is making us more like defensive minded to make sure that we are hard to beat. I think that is shown in the stats as well with regards to how much we're conceding each and every game and how we have done well there. Even though if you look at all the goals that we've considered, most of them can be mainly with regards to some individual mistakes happening from the defense perspective, but we've gotten better. After the restart, we've definitely gotten better. Also, in one of the statements that Arteta made was that the number of times he has gone to 10 men in his number of games that he's played, right? It's happening quite too often for him, and he's put in situations where the team is not able to cope up in that at that time. I think that is just luck playing him here and there. But overall, I would like to see us be hard to be defeated rather than going outright and score. Mainly because you need to have that kind of grit to make sure that we end up winning titles, and hopefully maybe one if we end up having the right signings in a couple of years, maybe challenge for the trophy as well for the EPL.
Right. So, Vinay, I mean, a couple of days back, when we were playing the free flowing football, we always thought it always gives you a good feel, right? Because that's how Arsenal are. We've been playing, such a way for a very long time. Maybe there was a blip a few years recently, but when we actually go back to that, style of play, it always reminds us of the good days and whatnot. Um, However, with the players that we have, and then the coach, we've been changing. It was Wenger, and then Wenger went out, Emery came in, and then there was Freddie for a couple of games or for a brief duration, and then Arteta came in. But we've been having the same set of players. Yes, there have been players that are being sold, who've been let go of and whatnot, but the certain set of players that we have had for these years, do you think it's difficult for the coach to implement his ideas, because um, he will not be knowing whether or not a club will be holding on to so and so players, because say someone like Mesut had issues with Emery, and then after a while he had to bring him back because his philosophy was not working out with the other set of players. And then when Arteta started, he said Mesut will uh, be playing under me, and he often started. The similar case was with Guendouzi. Um, so he trusted them, and then some things happened. They fell out with him. And in terms of Lewis, is someone who is he was entrusted with, and he comes back and makes glaring mistakes in the City games. So does this put pressure on the manager, because one, he has to work with what he has, and second, maybe due to financial constraints, we'll not be able to get players that other teams are capable of getting. So do we have to make do with what we have and set our expectations uh, that way? And when we play how we did against Leicester, does that induce some sort of false positive?
I didn't get the last part, Anjan. I got the first part. I probably have a bad connection. What was the last part again that you are asking?
So I was asking, does the coach has to make do with what the players has, because there's been falling out between players. He has to make do with what he has. Then the players come back. There'll be mistakes. And again, when we play very well, like how we have been doing in the last 2-3 games, Does that induce some sort of false positive, set a wrong expectation?
Um, it's probably a combination. Again, just covering this up by comparing the two. I mean, the problem, if I may address the Emery part first, and then the Arteta difference. Emery was the job was tough. You are going to succeed a man who was very successful for us. So your yardstick was very high, and it's unfortunate that it had to be Emery at a wrong time. Although towards the end, when Wenger was leaving, a lot wanted him to leave as well. But still, he had set a very high benchmark. So, and I'm not just talking about results here, right? He was the way he conducted himself, the way he had the values of the club around him all the time. He literally embodied Arsenal. What you wanted as the face of Arsenal, Arsene Wenger was that. Emery is coming in, and he was what he is, right? He has his own ways of functioning, and suddenly people ridicule that, which is very unfair to him. He did not do a lot of things wrong. It was just that he did not do a lot of things right. And that's a big difference for the ones who can understand that. But what Arteta is doing is not a lot of wrongs and not a lot of rights, which is not going to be highlighted. So the rights at the moment is he's improving players. And the prime example is Mustafi. I mean, I want him sold still. I'm not changing that. But you can sense that he is taking up more responsibilities. He wants the ball. He does not shy away, which he used to, even now. But end of the day, that perennial mistake in him is there because he allowed Jamie Vardy to score, right, last game. But right now you don't hear, including people who are often critical of him, likes of me, criticizing Mustafi, and that's something that Arteta has managed. He is going to improve players. Raheem Sterling improved, thank Arteta. Mustafi improved, thank Arteta. These players were really scaled up by him and how he works with him or them on a personal level. Arteta is going to be that kind of a manager. You're going to have some players who you think are not good enough, and he's going to turn them good enough. But overall, Arsenal still have basic problems, which cannot be plastered up by just saying, like, okay, we seem to be back to playing the free flowing football and all that stuff. The Leicester first half was brilliant. We should have scored 3 or 4, and he himself said that. We should have won that game in the first half. But that was the best we saw under Arteta so far. Reminded all of us a lot of how we used to see ourselves when we played at home against anybody. But if he can get that consistently, that's fantastic. But I think Arteta is going to be more and more a manager who's going to improve players, but the system also needs to give him the same support. So when I say system, he needs a consistent centre back pairing, he needs a spine in the midfield, and he needs his striker to stay or to score. So if he gets that, I'm positive, as well as the whole bunch is saying here, next season could be very well, wherein we can legitimately say we are top four contenders.
So, Binay, just to add, right? Not to add rather, but the situation where the club is, a fan is looking for wins today, and I'm sure if we have a few losses, like Emery did this season when we started, and if the same happens to Arteta next season, I don't see a lot of people backing him up. We are looking for scapegoats very fast and very early. We kind of don't want to understand what the issues are at the club sometimes. It could be footballing issues, it could be issues off the field, but right now things seem to be positive, so everybody wants to be positive, but that does not mean that everybody is very excited about Arteta going to deliver, right? I mean, everybody wants that league win, so let's see.
Yeah, I hope the positive vibes stay ahead of the North London derby, and even after that. So Vivek, the reason I brought up the names of someone like a Guendouzi and the others. So I was reading an article that pointed out the fact that it was Sven Mislintat's recommendations or scouting that led to us signing someone like a Guendouzi, a Torreira, and even someone like a Bernd Leno. So now he's gone. All of a sudden, I mean, we did not expect when he was, roped in by the club. After a brief stay, he, pointed fingers at few players. We signed them up, and now it's not there anymore. But the players are still with us, and some of them seem to have, disciplinary issues. And someone like a Torreira is had his fair share of injuries and playing out of position and whatnot. Whether he has adapted himself to the Premier League is again debatable. He had an excellent Northampton derby at home last time around, so that was a positive thing. But now he's not seen. He was not around much even before the injury. So I mean, so how is it for Arteta to manage these kind of players, because obviously it's not his signings. He has to make do with what he has, and like Vinay pointed out, he has done a decent job with Mustafi, who was very error prone. Now he is sort of stable again, and we are seeing issues with Guendouzi, whoever at fault there. So how difficult is it for him to manage players across seasons, managers, scouted by somebody else?
I think that is where a lot of credit is due to Arteta. Like Vinay made a very fair point about how it wasn't easy for Emery to step in, right? Because there was massive shoes that he was filling in. But if we take a moment and to ponder upon what Arteta stepped into, it was, I don't want to blow this out of proportion, but I mean, at least at the time, it seemed like we were a club in ruins, right? I mean, the only thing that we didn't have is handkerchief and toilet rolls being tossed in the air at the Emirates towards the end of Emery's reign. We had boos from the 70th minute, whistles going off. You don't know what you're doing, chance, and whatnot. It was very clear that it was time for Emery to move on, and Arteta has come in. He's tried to do the best that he can with what he has. We've made well, we've brought back Enketia, sure, but we've made one signing, and he's barely played 2 games for us, a game and a half, if I'm not wrong. So due credit there. I think he's come in, he's acclimatized himself to the club. Though it looks like he has a few unwavering principles, one of which is my way or the highway. Now look, this could really work either way. Uh, we've seen managers in the past who've been this way but have failed, and some who've been this way but have for the most part succeeded. I think Alex Ferguson, the only time he kind of made way for a player to not essentially take the throne, but at least somewhere there is with Rooney. Anyone else said a word against him and he was out, but that's a big gap, right? Arteta has barely even started his career. What I'm trying to say is that uh, it all depends on how clear a vision he has, how much he's going to stick to his guns in terms of the decisions he's making. Do I support his two decisions that are the most obvious now? In in both cases, I don't fully support it. On some level, I kind of get what's happening with Ozil. On many levels, I don't really get what's happening with Genduzi. But that is my opinion. But again, we don't know the full story. The only things that we do know is what's reported to us, and that Mateo has has a past uh, sprinkled with these issues in every single club during every single phase of his career, and he's barely started his career. So he could be the ultimate bad boy who goes on to become pretty awesome. The one thing I don't think we have to worry about is him becoming something like Pogba or De Bruyne. I don't see that level of talent because he doesn't have that level of uh, explosivity in his game. So, I mean, we'll have to see how the summer pans out. He is still going to have Ozil. Maybe we've seen him be okay with Ceballos, though he put him out, he hung him out there to dry a few times. He's now come back in. He's the mainstay in the team. It looked like Niles' time was done with the club. He's again getting some important game time in the Premier League. So it's never entirely fully closed with Arteta. If you really think back to the time he's taken over and how many players who fought their way back into the starting 11 simply because they were okay with changing the attitude.
And I think every manager at every club has a couple of players like that, right? As Vivek mentioned, Rooney might have been one of them. Even before that, I think it was Beckham with his whole hairstyles, which would piss Ferguson off. I think each and every manager has their own way of dealing with it, and I think Arteta's way, we still don't know whether it's going to work or not. Again, he's still fresh, he's still trying things out, but it is what it is. If someone pisses off a boss, then you are not going to get anything out of the person after that. So you have to know that is what it is. But as Vivek mentioned, second chances are being given out, uh, provided that you grasp the second chance and make sure that you get back on the good books. But end of the day, it's still going to be left up to Arteta to take the final decision as well as the management. But I still see him going out and getting in someone else new with regards to the midfield.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Sorry,
go on,
sorry.
go
The
on.
one thing that I would like to point out about what Emery tried to do and what Arteta seems to be doing is Emery always said, or well, he rather indicated to the fact that Ozil needs to do a lot more. Whoever on the pitch needs to do a lot more to be there as 11. Could be with defensively tracking back. It could be with a somewhat kind of pressing game that he was trying to introduce. But every single time we went on a run of 3 games or 4 games without a win, in came Ozil. He used to stay there for 10 games. We start to underperform a bit. We start to have some tired legs towards the last 20 minutes in the away games, and again out went Ozil. So it seemed like that also played a big role in him losing the dressing room towards the end of the season and definitely at the start of the season. So that's why I think it's very important that the coach sticks to his guns. It's not so much about, okay, I made a mistake, I'm going to accept it. Uh, it's not as easy as that. There is ego in play. There is a 100% a power shift in play. It is a power struggle. You have names as big as Ozil and, well, kids who think their egos are bigger than themselves in Ganduzi. So I'm forced to side by the coach in this. It's nothing else. It's not like I'm fully appreciative of it. I just think it is the way forward for us as a club.
So Emery had the issue of fans not backing him, right? So I mean that's a good side of us having a lockdown and no fans at these stadiums. That pressure is off. Whenever Arsenal did not play, when we were losing, it was very clear that the reason why we were losing is because Arsenal did not play, but that was not the fact. I mean, we couldn't speculate whether we could have won more games if had he not played any of those games. So we can keep speculating now. In terms of players and their mood, I mean, Ibrahimovic is a very good example, right? At the age of 38, he still demands a lot of things from his club. Um, Even though he doesn't play a lot of games. Yeah, you're going to see those characters. It depends upon how the managers want to take care of them. This is going to be an ongoing cycle forever.
Yeah, I think it's been a good start with Arteta in terms of him not letting the players have the upper hand. Like Vivek mentioned, a couple of names who have been left out, who've done well in the training to come back, and the training efforts have translated on the pitch in terms of the performance. So we'll move on. It's been good last few weeks. At least after the couple of games post restart where we kind of lost our way. And whatever Jomi mentioned, maybe it's a blessing in disguise that there are no fans, not pointing fingers, but maybe there's some sort of pressure that's off. So it's a big game coming up, North London Derby. We've had these discussions a long time before. Earlier, it was always Wenger against whoever was the opposition manager. Um, I mean, everybody would have loved to see if it was a North London derby where it was Wenger versus Mourinho, right? That would have been the box office game that everybody would have looked forward to. Emery didn't. Emery didn't. Do too bad there. We won 4-2 at home under him. I think it was a pretty exciting game. Again, the tables have turned. The managers have changed. Where the clubs were then, now it has changed. So it's Arteta who is starting out versus Mourinho, someone who's finished, if I can call him that. I hope it doesn't come back to bite us. Touchwood. So it's Arteta versus Mourinho, Arsenal versus Tottenham. I think only a solitary point separates us in the table. So what are your thoughts after the past few games? Assuming we did play very well, except for that red card, which completely we lost our way after that. So thoughts on that, guys, on the North London derby?
Before we even talk about the North London derby, right? I don't think Mourinho forgets Arsenal for how bad the team that he manages does, or how bad situation he is. He always brings it about him and his hatred for the club in some way or the other. He passed a comment today talking about Arteta. He still feels he is Arteta, the kid that he saw at Barcelona when he was under Van Gaal. So, he is trying to take that pressure off, right? He's trying to take the pressure off his players very well, and he is trying to get that hatred, and for some reason, he feels he does a better job when he does that. Um, I don't know if he still has that class anymore. He is somebody on a decline, but in all honesty, Arsenal and Spurs at the moment are teams that are very unstable. When I say in terms of results, on their day they can beat any team. I'm giving a little more respect to Spurs just for now. We'll change it in a few minutes time. Yes, on their day they can beat any team, and they had their share of bad games this season. So it's a must win for us. No matter what, we need to try and achieve the top 4 5 uh, goal for the season, irrespective of what league we play in next season. So it's very important that we win this weekend, not just because it's a derby game. It's because we have to continue that winning mentality.
Anko, your thoughts?
Yeah, absolutely. Nothing much to add. I mean, it's a North London derby. It's a must-win game, irrespective of what position we are, what situation we are. Yes, North London derby is a must-win game. And knowing our history with Mourinho and how much hatred which he shows towards our club, as Jomi mentioned, it's always becomes a interesting game again. I mean, playing against Mourinho, it is. I think apart from United and Tottenham, probably the another team which we would dearly or badly want to beat is essentially probably a team being managed by Mourinho. So yeah, Mourinho being managing Tottenham is another added up fact for us to give our absolutely 100% and try to win the game. Nothing beats. I mean, this is the game which we all wait for once the once the fixtures are out. So yeah, biggest game of the season.
Yeah, fair enough. So when a couple of points here. We've beaten Wolves, who are above us in the table when we played them, and we had a good game against Leicester. Let's be fair. We were a little inconsistent in terms of finishing, but we did play quite well till then. In terms of table, Spurs are below us, even though it's just by a single point. So when we actually go into this derby, do you think Arteta can give the players the confidence that we did well against Wolves and Leicester, who are up above us in the table, and Spurs are, let's be honest, they were struggling, they are struggling. Um, so, do you think Arteta can give the players that confidence that we can do well, though there is, some sort of mental block, or somewhere on the corner there's a thought that they are a top six team. If not for this season, they've been doing decent enough.
So we are going in with -1 handicap, right? The -1 I talk of golfing terms is that Harry Kane is going to score. That's a given. We said Vardy will score, and he scored. Kane will score day after. That's a given. So with regards to that, we are going in with a handicap that we are going to concede one. So the point here is. Will Arteta install that confidence? I think based on the first half, he should be fairly confident. Uh, we haven't beaten them at whatever they have named their stadium at as, and I think it's been some time we went away and beat them. Uh, I just honestly don't remember when we last beat them at White Hart Lane. Yeah, that's the only name I could think of. I don't know what their stadium is called now. But I think based on the first half against Leicester, as I told before I went off air, that was the best 45 minutes you could thoroughly say you enjoyed. You know, can I go as far as saying that was the best 45 minutes we've had for the entire season? Because I can't quickly recollect any better 45 minutes. Results may be different. I agree, but I think that was the most pleasing 45 minutes I have seen in a long, long time. And he could tell the players the same. Spurs. With that defense and without Ericsson in the midfield, they are struggling. So I think he should install that in them that this is a game we should play to win. Mourinho is going to set up as usual, not to lose. He would have seen you can absolutely loathe the man and hate the man, but you can't deny him that he would have studied the opposition very well. He would have seen Arsenal play Leicester. He would have seen the last four games. He's not going to try to beat us like City did. He doesn't have the personnel. What he's going to do is literally suffocate us and then score. He knows that's the only way that we are going to beat them. That's going to be the game plan. Can Arteta come up with something? By default, he's got Lacazette starting, and I think he may even try Pepe on Sunday. But I think he should go in. We should go into the game confident. I don't see why we can't beat Spurs. And it's not because I'm saying it's Spurs and we hate them and all that. Genuinely, I think our attack should be good enough to beat them on the day.
Yeah. Vivek and Kirti, your thoughts on, I mean, there's been, topic about power shift and whatnot over the years, but I don't think we've paid heed to, such comments, because uh, we have been in a rebuild phase ourselves, and though for a few seasons, Spurs did, fare better in certain areas. Um, we didn't really have any sort of issues beating them at home, at least last season. So there have been talks about, power shift and whatnot, but the season does not reflect that, at least, and they seem to be uh, playing poorer when compared to us, at least barring the couple of games that we lost. So where do you see us, when we pit ourselves against Spurs under Mourinho?
I mean, first off, power shift. I look. There have been moments. The last 6 or 7. I'm not even going to say 3 years. 6, 7, 8 years probably. Right from the season where we won, we came from behind to win 5-2, and we absolutely nicked top four. There have been moments, and it's only been limited to moments of hope that Spurs have had, that they can even build towards coming anywhere close to the club that we are, or initiate a power shift. I don't think there's any power shift or in play when it comes to North London. I would begrudgingly agree if we talk about a power shift in London because of how far Chelsea have come in the last decade. But Spurs have a long way to go. Honestly, they haven't won a cup in I don't know how long. The only thing they as a club have to look forward to is Harry Kane winning the Golden Boot, and that is it. I mean, he pits against his own teammates to grab a goal in order to win himself the golden boot. This happened a couple of seasons back, so it kind of shows the levels of differences in two clubs. I wouldn't even want to go there. At least in terms of teams, I would say until they had Pochettino, at least the last 2 years of his reign, they probably were the better team, far from being the better club. That's not in question, right? They had the better team out there. They were playing good football for a season. I think the next season it was a bit of a hangover, though they got to the Champions League finals. That could have been a pivotal time for them. But yeah, just like us, stadium move on the horizon. They had moved. We lost the finals, and they lost the finals, and they're furthermore in debt. So it looks like a long way back for them. As for Mourinho and where he's going to leave them, I can't wait to see how this pans out. He leaves every single club after the first season in tatters. This time he's not even waiting one season. Looks like he wants to do it this season. He's almost out to get them and ruin whatever little reputation they have left.
Yeah, looks like
Uh,
a man on a mission.
Man on a mission, absolutely.
So
Uh,
Vivek, sorry, you missed the most important thing, right? You can't say there is no power shift. There's definitely power shift. Not on the footballing pitch or not outside the footballing pitch, but on Amazon series, they're
hmm,
definitely on it. So
so,
there is power shift.
yeah, they got a
I just
series
had
out
a
there.
I just had a question to the group. Do you guys remember when was the last time we beat them at White Hart Lane? Was it the Rosicky goal? Was that the last one? I think we won there.
Yeah,
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay. And then the other one was, do you guys see Mourinho being there next season? I think he's leaving, or he will be asked to leave.
the thing is, he is on huge wages there. If they gotta fire him, they'll have to take a loan to fire him. That's how big a package he's on. So all the more bewildering it is, right? When they signed him on, when the news came out about how much they had to shell out to tie him up. I mean, I don't get what Daniel Levy's done there. It's almost they're like a ticking time bomb right now. So I don't know if they can
But
afford to sack him. That's my thing.
but Vivek, do remember, strong rumors are that Mourinho will go to a national team, and it could be anybody. And I think at a national team level, I think he will be a success. And two, they do have a bankable star. I mean, at least in terms of money, Harry Kane sold could be in 100 million plus.
His knees are gone. Will anyone still want him? I mean, he was fantastic a year and a half ago. Now I don't know if he has it in him, at least in England, to keep himself fit for the entire season. Maybe outside, but I don't know if he'd want to leave England.
Yeah,
I think
like when I
Greenwood weren't to have
like
been a success. United were hell bent on him.
yeah, I think United are kind of settled now with all their kids coming up, and like when I mentioned, uh, I don't know what's with Vardy against us, Harry Kane against us. It's they're always right in front of the goal, and we always seem to concede. But I hope it doesn't happen. Because one, it's North London derby, and though we are 5,000 miles away, we can't. I mean, it's we can't take a loss against them, and with all the momentum we've built, a draw would be kind of dull, and loss against Spurs and Mourinho is again it's life ruining. So I hope it doesn't happen. um, one question I had, maybe Keith, you can answer this. So when the players know it's a derby game, we've discussed about. We even had a special derby and rivalry episode in our podcast. A few of the guys in the group were part of that. So do you reckon that the players need extra motivation, that it's a derby game and the fans will be raring to go? I mean, to for us to win. Do the coaches have to put in extra efforts to motivate the players, or do you think the players have it in themselves to pick them up? Yeah, it was a draining draw because we held on to the one goal lead till almost to the end, but we let it go. So do you think the players need extra motivation to pick themselves up and face Spurs for the derby game?
No, so derby games, everyone knows what is the intensity derby games are played with, right? If you look at all the games that we have had with Spurs, we have had thrilling games end to end, each and every team going above each other with regards to scoring and things like that. And the advantage I see that we are having this season is mainly with regards to, for this particular game, is mainly with regards to Arteta. He has played in enough derbies for us with regards to against Spurs, right? And he, I think, will understand what this derby means. I think last season we were actually talking about whether Emery understands the derby game, but the team did deliver that game. But without showing, I think everyone is pumped for this particular game. Only sad thing is there is no crowd there. So I would wanted to see our away crowd being there when we win again there. So I think that is something that I am hopeful this season, because not having a crowd on away soil also is good, because at this point the fake noise is not going to impact that much as well. So I see us doing well there, and by default I think your blood boils when you want to see Spurs there, right? And when you see them play, or when we play against them, things just heat up. Even whether you want it or not, things just heat up. And that shows that it's not a normal game. Something else that I want to point out is that form goes out of the window for derby games. However good you have been or however bad you have been, that's something that we need to be careful of. But provided that you can't end up out of nowhere, get a new skill in that particular game. And Spurs have been struggling to score in the past few games, and even against bad teams. And that shows that for us, it is the right time to get in and get the win. We have been dominant in the past couple of games with regards to what we did, apart from the mishaps that happened. But still, we have to be positive going into the game. We understand that second half's a little slow, but still, uh, that being said, I still see us winning there. Uh, I see us for some reason winning comfortably there, and not having a difficult game there.
Yeah, let's hope the form table. I mean, the form doesn't turn around. Hopefully.
When are we doing the
So
predictions? Sorry, when are we doing the predictions? As long as Keithley doesn't say 3-1, I'm happy. Please don't say 3-1 again.
yeah, I think predictions are maybe for pre-match stuff. Let's keep it there. So Jomi, I just wanted to bring this up and ask you about this. We all saw the Leicester game, and Eddie just came on. It was a high challenge. He got the red card. Maybe after consultation, it was upgraded to a red from an yellow. He went on. Maybe at that time, since we were 1-0 up, we all thought, okay, maybe we could handle the rest of the game. And unfortunately we conceded, but somehow we all knew that it was a red card, and if some opposition did to us, we would be fuming if the player did not get a red card. So one thing is that player getting a red, changing fortunes. On the other side, we saw yesterday's game where United got a dubious penalty. It was consulted, and even VAR didn't overturn it. So how much of these referees, I mean, let's be honest, the English referees are, if incompetence had a name, they would call it as English referees, because they have been pathetic, to say the least. So how much of a impact such decisions have, because Aston Villa game was inconsequential, and but games such as the ones we had against Leicester, the ones we are going to play against Spurs, so it may define who gets into Europe and who may not. So how much of a impact do you think such decisions have, and is there any way forward to at least look forward to, yes, this may change in the future? Because we thought it would change when VR was announced, but it's made even more um, difficult.
So To be very honest, I do not know if I can pass a comment because I don't know if that will affect the club indirectly. So I'm not going to call names, but um, I mean, to be fair, Nketiah's red kind of, you could say, I won't say deserves it, but a VAR check might end up giving it. It's understood, fair enough. But what happened to the one that where Mustafi got that kick from Wadi? So again, debatable. I don't know why the referee did not even go look at VAR for that particular foul. And if you keep looking at those replays, that's even more deliberate than what Nketiah did. I can understand all of these issues, right? There are times when it's all perceptions when it comes to VAR. So you can't have all the referees trying to understand the game just the same. So you're going to have everyone look at each individual incident in a different way. That is understandable. That's totally fine. But what I can't understand is issues like the penalty that United got. I have no clue what they were looking at. I honestly have no clue what they were looking at. I mean, I don't even know why that player fell down crying in the first place because he was the one who broke the other guy's leg. So I don't know why they gave that penalty. So I have no idea. The other game, I think the City game where the ball went in and VAR didn't rule against that because there was no message or there was no sound or a beep. The line. Beep for the referee. I mean, a big deal. I mean, technology can fail, right? I mean, he didn't get a message. He didn't get that beep or whatever. But we have VAR to override those kind of issues. And unfortunately, in the Premier League, I don't see that happening. Likewise, there are so many things. I mean, the Spurs had um, the game, one of their decisions where uh, the player fell down and he fell down and his hand hit the ball. So VAR called it a handball. I mean, they don't deserve it, but I mean, from a footballing terms, it's sad for VAR to be used in the worst possible way. I'm not sure if it happens in all the other leagues. I don't follow a lot of leagues. Honestly, don't get time to watch all the other leagues and can't be on Facebook and television all the time because it's spread all across. But I think Premier League, hands down, would be the worst governed um, f- football association when it comes to having VAR. Somebody should have actually picked up these issues. Somebody should have apologized for the issues and should have said, "Hey, we're working on making things. It was a failure. We accept it. We're looking at things to fix it." And I don't see any of those happening. And we can only expect more of these coming up. And especially when
But
Arsenal plays, I think, like when I said, right, -1, we know that Kane is going to score. We also know that there's going to be a bad decision from the referee.
but isn't FIFA now coming and telling that they're going to be in charge of VAR? Some sign telling that the referees might not be competent enough to take those critical decisions, which might be mass changing.
Yeah, but FIFA will not come on the pitch that one day and then make that decision, right? So they will make those governing rules to say this is what you need to follow, this is what you need to do. But if a referee that sees a different player fouling another player but calls it a foul by the other player, how much can FIFA help them?
No, Wilfred Zaha also had a comment on with regards to the referees, right? He actually mentioned telling that his leg would be broken even before he gets like the person who's fouling on him gets a red. That is the levels of comments that's going against the referees, and I agree to your point. There should be someone coming and telling that okay, we know mistakes have been made, we're going to rectify it and things like that. And I think this season overall we've gotten screwed to an extent where we might have won 14 points if all the decisions of VAR had gone our direction, but it is what it is right now. We can't go ahead and change our point system, but we uh, uh, we don't see signs of changing, and I think maybe that's why I saw a little bit of hope when FIFA told they might be doing something, but they don't see that changing for the season at least.
Kirti Wenger can do a lot of things, but I don't think so he can do this.
No, but also I ended up seeing that Wenger might again FIFA might be trying to see coming up with a change with regards to the offside rule also, right? Right
Exactly
now,
right.
offside, yeah, the offside rule is being planned to change to an extent where it's your back foot that will be checked being in line with the last defender, not any part of your nose or your hair or your knee that is coming out or your flailing arm that's coming out. So that is going to be tested out. There's a lot of opposition that's coming now telling that if someone is at a point where the person is about to cross over running in opposite directions, that second foot might actually end up being close to like a couple of yards advantage, right, to the attackers. So that is something that might be interesting to see. We have lost goals with regards to when we have been team turned offside, or the other team also has gotten it. So it works both ways, but maybe just interesting to see if that ends up coming. We'll end up seeing a lot more goals. We'll end up seeing defenses in set plays, not tracking people properly, and the other team scoring as well. So changes are coming. Also, I had read that we'll end up having 5 subs for the next season as well. Not I don't know the source, but I read that somewhere. Do you guys have any ideas on that?
Yeah, even I read that there will be 5 subs from next season. But again, Keithy, whatever you mentioned is a long process. Most of the things which you mentioned regarding the offside rule or whatever, it might be implemented in the next season starting, and it's a slow graduating process. But having said that, looking at our past history and whatever is happening or has happened during this season, I mean, what Jomi said, it's not -1 for us. It's essentially, you can say, a -2 kind of a thing, where we know that Harry Kane will score, and we will also have decisions against us. Oh, thanks, Akshay. You want to listen my thoughts, so yeah, keep listening. We'll have a lot of things to talk about.
Ankur is the only
Yeah,
one who's
Ankur.
got fans on the podcast, so it's good.
Yeah. So, Ankur, final thoughts before we wrap this up.
Nothing much. As I said, it's a North London derby, biggest game of the season. Absolutely, we have to win. It's a must-win game, and I am positive. I think looking at how Spurs have been playing, I don't see us losing this game. And I think Keithy mentioned that Mikel also knows the importance of the game, especially having been part of so many North London derbies. So yeah, I am pretty positive. Let's wait for Sunday and let's hope for the best possible result.
Yeah, I hope we don't take them lightly. And whatever is the result, I hope we get the 3 points. So yeah, so that was me. Thank you guys for joining. I think it's time to wrap up this rambling session. We will be having our customary pre-match analysis. You guys can tune in. We'll be either streaming on Facebook, YouTube. Follow our social media handles on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube for all the updates. And keep listening and keep supporting Arsenal Bangalore. Come on, you Gunners.